institutions, through our schools, and through our educational institutions. And with regards to the American people are an open-minded people. If the Muslims were to do their job here in this country, there's nothing stopping, as I am proof and as others are proof, of this religion expanding and establishing itself.
Right. Brother Omar Smith, thank you very much for sharing your...
Thank you for the invitation, brother.
Okay. And I'm joined here by one of my brothers in Islam, Brother Bashir Abdul Mu'min. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
And thank you for agreeing to sit with us and spend some time with us as we're trying to capture what life is like for Muslims here in America by telling the stories that must be told. So Brother Bashir, as we begin, just tell us a bit about your background and your upbringing and how you came to Islam.
Okay. Basically, you know, I grew up in a Christian home. My parents weren't really practicing Christian, but, you know, we went to church on Sundays. We went to church on the holidays. The interesting thing is that the Christian experience never really sat in with my heart, so I don't recall ever growing up believing that, you know, Jesus was God. So I didn't really, I don't know, I would say I didn't really think too much about religion.
Mm-hmm. But what was your life like? I mean, what was your demeanor, what was your behavior like at those times?
Okay, I mean, my behavior, I would say, you know, I grew up in the city. I grew up in Seattle in the inner city. Mm-hmm. And so I would say around 6th grade, you know, 1986, Seattle started having gang problems, mm-hmm. Okay? And so we had a lot of gang people come up from California, and it basically changed the dynamic of the city. So this was the environment that I grew up in, you mm-hmm. know, real harsh, you know, gang environments. At the same time, I think that, you know, I mean, I've always had support from friends and family, mm-hmm. but again, you know, the outside environment was very harsh. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, being in those environments, I kind of picked up, you know, some of the negative habits during those times. Mm-hmm. I would say pretty much by the time I was 15, I felt like an adult. Mm-hmm. You know, I was very mature. I knew pretty much what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And so it made me really independent. During this time, I think in 10th grade, I went to school with a Muslim. His name was Jabbar. Mm-hmm. And he became Muslim because his older brother and his cousin became Muslim. Mm-hmm. And so during lunchtime, he would talk to me about Islam. And I thought it sounded strange, but at the same time, there was something about it that really resonated with me deep down inside. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, he would take me to, you know, sit with his brothers. You know, sometimes they would take me to the masjid, but again, I didn't accept Islam. You know, mm-hmm. I mean, I was just kind of thinking about it and considering it. And so later, Jabbar, he moved back to California where he was from originally. And so we lost contact in the summertime, you know. I mean, it was pretty bad in Seattle, I think the summer of '92, you mm-hmm. know. I mean, I think like a lot of the gang activity, a lot of the violence in the city, I would say was pretty much at an all-time high, you mm-hmm. know. Experiencing that time, it made me think, I knew there was something else for me to do, but I didn't know what it was. I knew there was a better life, but I just didn't know what it was. Mm-hmm. I remember, you know, being, you know, a kid walking around the street saying, I know I'm not supposed to be here. I know I'm not supposed to be doing this.
And how old are you at this time?
15. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I didn't know, you know, what alternative there was. And mm-hmm. again, you know, I had been introduced to Islam, but I had never really considered, you know, taking my Shahada. And so I would say by the end of, I think by the time I turned 16, mm-hmm. The summer I turned 16, I would say that, you know, the city, especially the inner city, was very bad, you know. And again, you know, Allah brought the Muslims my way. Mm-hmm. The Muslims would come out, they would give dawah. They would come out late at night in the city, in the streets, and they would always say, you know, brother, these are the last days. Mm-hmm. You know, you got to get it together. I can recall they would come out, you know, with incense. They would have oils. They would have thobes. You know, this is 12, 1 o'clock at night. They would come out in groups, And they would say, you know, brother, you know, these are the last days. And so finally, I reconnected with my friend Abdul Jabbar, his older brother, whose name was Zahid. So I started visiting him, and what I found was where he lived at, all the kids in the neighborhood would go to his house. They called it the Muslim house. And, you know, it was non-Muslims, Muslims. And so people would hang out there. I mean, it was kind of like a safe place to be, you know. And so everybody would go there, hang out, you know, people would talk about Islam. And I remember the Muslims would stay up all night and they would make fajr and then they would go to sleep. So this is what I thought. I thought the Muslims would stay up, you know, all late, talk, and go to sleep in the morning, you know. And so finally, Zahid, what he began to say, he started telling people, like, if you're not coming to this house to learn, then you have to leave. And so I stayed, and I remember, you know, opening the Quran and just, you know, Allah's name, just Allah. I mean, it was like it woke me up. It woke me up. And from there, I mean, I was just drawn to Islam. And, you know, I always say that, you know, like it says that there's, you know, what is it, guidance of tawfiq, you know, and guidance where people, you know, talk to you. And I would say that, you know, my conversion to Islam was more of, you know, guidance of tawfiq, where, you know, I feel like Allah called me, you know, from my heart. And that's how and so eventually I began to pray with the Muslims. Again, I didn't know what I was doing. I was going off the feeling that I experienced, and I don't know, I guess the spiritual dynamics that I was feeling. And so after praying with them for so many times and hanging around them, I said, you know, I want to become Muslim. And so what happened was Zahidi grabbed some brothers together, and then they gave me my shahada. And I remember being very, very, very excited. And I think, you know, the night I went home after taking my shahada, I didn't sleep. You know, I didn't sleep. I stayed up, just, wow, you know, I mean, I'm Muslim. And I recall as I would pray, I felt like, you know, all the struggles that I had been through up until that point, I could feel it kind of like dissipating, or was leaving me.
Now, how old were you when you took Shahada?
16. 16.
So, but you had the feeling like you had lived a lot of life up to that point.
Exactly, yes. I mean, I felt like I lived I felt like an adult, basically. I felt like an adult. And
so even though you were 16, you were really making an informed, like, educated decision.
I wouldn't say it was an informed, educated decision. It was more of what I felt in my heart. It was more of, like I said, when I would hear Allah's name, I mean, it triggered something in me. I mean, it was almost like, it was almost as if maybe I heard it before. And it was, you know, when I would see Allah's name, even when I would see Allah in Arabic, it was like, you know, it was like an awakening basically, you know. And so that's what I was going off. It wasn't that I had read all these books, you know, and that, you know, I would go to the mosque and sit in for Jummah. It wasn't that. It was the feeling. And the other thing I can recall, and one thing that really, really struck me, was that, you know, like I said, during the time the city was very harsh. And the type of friends that I had at the time, it was more like, you know, if you didn't have money, if you didn't have nice clothes, you know, or if you weren't with the in crowd, then, you know, you're nobody. So after playing that game for so long, it hurt me and we hurt each other. And I recall the Muslims telling me, you know, we accept you as you are. And I had never heard anybody say that to me. So again, that affected me, you know, and I guess that just really broke down some barriers, you know. And as a result of those feelings and those experiences,